I'm Barry O'Carroll from the Europe Direct Information Centre at Blanchardstown Library, and I'm back with another interview as part of our Education and Employment for Young People series, and I'm joined with someone I've spoken to many times before, our good friend, career and life coach Jill Barrett. Hi Jill.
Hi Barry, how are you?
Good. We've done a few of these now.
We have. We're clocking them up.
Absolutely. So this is a little bit different to the other ones we've done because our audience, we're aiming this specifically at young people, everything from people still in secondary school to kind of people who are maybe going through college or have just finished college and are wondering what to do next with their life. So we thought, who better to speak to than Jill? So we'll get straight into it. We often hear the term employable being used. So what do we mean when we talk about staying employable?
Yeah, employability is an interesting term, isn't it? Because a lot of people think, oh gosh, how am I going to get a job because I have no experience? And the reality is that we are all very employable from very early on in our life, because if you're able to have a conversation with somebody, if you're able to pick up the telephone, if you're able to write a note, and even if you're not able to write a note, so I'm conscious that many in the audience, for example, some people might have challenges around dyslexia, or they might have learning difficulty. They might have a disability, and the reality is that people don't employ you because you've been employed before, and I think that's what often people get confused around this term of employability. They employ you for three reasons. One is on the basis of the sort of person that you are, the personality that you are. Secondly is around your capability to do a job. So it's not about your ability to do the job necessarily, so that's important. They will certainly look at skills, but they'll think about what is the potential for this person to do the work for me. So if you're in your teens, or late teens or early 20s, and maybe you haven't been able to get some part-time work, and especially in this environment, you're finding it difficult to get a job, any job, don't worry that this is wasted time. We'll talk about that in a few moments.
Okay.
It's really time that you can be building up other skills while you're not working. So can you get on with people? Okay, that's the first bit. But do you have the capability to do the job? And the third thing is what makes you really employable is that you actually want to do the work that you're doing. And that's a key thing. So having a passion and interest in what you're doing. So being employable simply means, being able to relate. So you and I having a chat and we've got to know each other, fairly well over these videos. But the first time you meet somebody, do you create a positive impression? What are the outstanding sort of traits about you? Are you friendly? Are you somebody who's a good listener? Are you somebody who is perhaps, a good team worker, a leader of a team? We all have traits, skills, abilities, values, interests, personality skills that can be an asset to any employer or recruiter going forward. And again, the interest thing is key. I suppose one of the things that's difficult in the current environment is it may be difficult not only to get a job, but to get the job that you want. So it's all the time having the picture, ahead of you, the big prize, where I want to go in terms of job or career. But there may be other things that you need to do along the way. Long before I became, my background is in hotel management, how I started out in my degree, and long before I was managing properties and running a business and, managing teams, I was cleaning a lot of loos. I was scrubbing kitchen walls, on the route to there. So it didn't all just happen overnight. I had to take a few, challenging jobs, shall we say, along the way that really, the smell of a particular cleaner that used to be called a jiff and is now called SIP. I used to have nightmares about it at night because I worked in rooms and accommodation for a while.
Yeah, so patience is important, isn't it? I mean, you may not get that exactly what you want straight away, but you can work your way towards it.
100%. The important thing I always say is, in any relationship, be it with a person or a project or a career or a role, if 60% of that is right and, is good and healthy and it's getting you what you want, do you know what I mean, at the end of the day, a bit of an income and, the people that you work with are reasonably decent and all of those things, then that's okay. So 40%, you can sort of tolerate. I think once it goes beyond the 60-40, for me anyway, that's when you stand back and go, is this right for me? So sometimes people might think, is it better to be in the wrong job than in no job at all? And there isn't a straightforward answer to that. Only the individual can know that. But you'll know yourself if things are not going according to plan in life.
Okay.
And many people who are listening today or watching this may be going, look, that's me at the moment. I'm just in a bit of a rut. Things are, I can't see out of it. And it's hard when you're in that scenario to be able to see the longer view. But you'll know instinctively if something doesn't feel right.
And
I know you wanted to ask.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to the next question, because you spoke about uncertainty there. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the jobs market right now. We're in a very unique and unusual situation. So how can we best manage that uncertainty in the jobs market?
I suppose the key at the end of the day, and as you say, we've done a lot of these videos before, and I've made some myself, and it's something I discovered very early on in my own career. When I was little, my mum was very sick when I was growing up, and I was effectively a child carer with my dad of my mum, and that had its own challenges. I had to take on a lot of adult responsibility very quickly. And when it was a tough time, so I suppose I had to look into myself very deeply. I went through, I suppose, a lot of highs and lows and ups and downs in that time. And what I realised was, at the end of the day, the thing that mattered most in terms of the outcomes that I got in any situation was what going on between here and here. What was going on in my mind. And long after my mum died, I was very down for a while, as you would be. You lost your mum, and I had, my three siblings had left home, so my dad was getting elderly as well. He was much older than my mum, so there was a lot of stuff going on. And I went through highs and lows, and I realised I found a lot of self-help books at the time, I suppose, and I realised I came across this wonderful quote, and it was, the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. A lady called Vera Pfeffer. Quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. And in terms of how we can prepare for uncertainty, it's funny that people are talking about uncertainty now with this pandemic, as if we had certainty before.
Yeah.
And things were never certain. And the fact that the pandemic happened and everything that's happened has happened is living, walking proof that there is no certainty, that you never know what's around the corner. Now, when I say that, people might go, that might cause a bit of anxious feelings or tension. But the reality is, the one thing that doesn't change in all of that is you as a person. So you cannot change the events around you. You can't change the fact that you're maybe living in a difficult environment at the moment, that people are putting you under a lot of pressure, that your folks, your guardians, whoever you're living with, or your peers, your siblings, there's lots of messages coming. You can't control that at all. But the one thing that you can control, as long as you're in a good cognitive state, but if you're listening and watching this and you're understanding what you and I are saying, what Barry and myself are saying, then the reality is you're capable of doing this, which is you're capable of standing back, taking a look at your thinking, taking a look at the events and going, I cannot control the fact that I'm sick, or that somebody else is sick, or that I've lost my job, or that I haven't got a job. What I can control is my thinking around it. And so you and I have spoken before about this lovely term, CIA.
Yes, one of my favourites.
What can I control? What can I influence? And what can I accept? But even before we get into that, just thinking it's really useful. I do a little exercise. If you can imagine a donut, and the hole in the donut is just the inside of the inner ring. And if I was to write down on a page just a list of two things, or in that hole, the inner circle and the outer circle. On the inner circle is the things I can control right at the minute. And in the outer circle, the things I can't control. And to be very clear with myself around what's in the inner circle, what I can control, and what's in the outer circle, what I can't control. And once you've done that, take a look at it again and make sure that the two things are in the right category, so that you definitely don't have influence over the ones that are in the outside my control, and you definitely do have influence over the ones that are in the circle. And then, it sounds very simplistic, but you will find that the stuff in this outer circle, the one stuff that you can't control, is actually a lot of the thoughts that are in your head. They say that 85% of our thoughts, Barry, are repetitive. And if we're not in a good state, mentally or otherwise, most of that is often very negative, not compassionate. Oh, I was working with a client yesterday, a student, and she was talking about. She said, "I'm terrible at making decisions. I'm really bad at decision making. I'm awful. I can't make a decision to save my life." And I said, "Is that true?" And she goes, "Yeah, absolutely." And I went, "No, is it really true?"
Yeah.
And we went through this cycle. It's called Byron Katie developed. It's called the process of self-inquiry, and she realized how negatively she was feeling as she was having those thoughts. So if I start at the moment thinking, I'll never get a job, everyone hates me, I don't have the experience I need. If I feed my brain with that, it's like going to the gym.
Absolutely, yeah.
And not lifting the weights, just standing there, or lifting weights that are too heavy for me, I get worn out. But if I lift the right weights, and I do it over and over again, that muscle builds, that muscle develops. So if I feed my brain, your brains change all the time, our brains change all the time. If I feed my brain with positive, or at least don't feel it with negative, information and messages about myself, then I have a much greater chance of getting control of the things that I can control, focusing on those, focusing on what can I do? Okay, I can't find a job at the moment, but I can make sure that my CV is in top-notch shape.
Okay.
I can get somebody to look over my cover letter. I can build my LinkedIn profile. I can get some voluntary experience online, do something online, to cheer up the local neighbours. Do you know what I mean? Reach out to old folks, whatever it happens to be. You can build your skills, build a language, So there's lots of things I can control. I can't control the pandemic. I can mind myself and hope I don't get sick. But if I might get sick, or somebody in the family might get sick. So there are lots of things I can't control, but loads of things I can control.
Yeah.
And that comes down to what's going on in here, not anything to do with what's around you.
Yeah, and we've spoken about that, and I'd advise anyone who'd like to delve into that a little bit deeper, look at our series on the Fingal Library's YouTube channel on resilience. And we go into that and how to handle it. And you're absolutely right. I remember at the very beginning of this pandemic saying to myself, the first thing I have to do is accept that it's happening. That this is happening and there's nothing I can do about it. And then after that, you can begin to act. And I think a lot of stress comes when people don't accept that something is happening, So that's really good advice, yeah.
100% right. And that's a really good point around the acceptance. And it's a hard... even though you and I are quite old.
Not that old.
I speak
older than our audience, maybe.
Or older than the audience. So, some of you guys might be looking at us going, oh, like, what would they know, and whatever. But the thing is, I was a teenager, and I grew up in tough times, as in, tough times sort of economically, like there was a couple sessions.
It was pretty grim,
growing up, and apart from that, I lived in a house where my mum was sick, and it was just, I had to be the adult in my house, and that's done two things for me. People say, about that employability notion. It doesn't just come from your work experience; it comes from your life experience.
Yes,
so,
definitely.
When I was, 12, 13, 14, am I doing cooking the dinners? I decided which windows we were going to get in our house. My dad wasn't good at electrics, so if there was an electrical job, I got the job. To change plugs, test the bulbs.
Yeah, and it's true, because there's a question coming up soon about experience, and experience doesn't just have to come from work. And we'll get to that. I'm just going to move on with the next thing there, because it kind of links in again. So sometimes when you're young, or younger than us anyway, it's hard to see why work is important. So how do you think being in work can actually add to your life in a positive way?
Absolutely, and that's a great question, how it can, I suppose, why is work important? Why would I bother to get a job? You know what I mean? There are other ways of making money, usually not legal. So, we want to think about something that's purposeful. And I always say, there's so many things that you get out of work. I was looking at a webinar recently by a lady called Sarah Yancey. She's a US billionaire, and she's got a thing called the E-Women Network. But she's a philanthropist, and she had a very tough upbringing herself. And she says, your instant thing is, you work to get money, and a lot of people might think, well, I can get money, I can get money other ways, but I don't have to work, and hopefully I might, meet somebody and they might be very wealthy, happy days, and I don't have to work. But why would you work? So she says, look, money is important. Don't let people tell you money isn't important, or you don't work to get money, because of course you do. It's undeniable. But there are so many other things that come from work. So the first thing is connecting with people, building relationships with other people. The second thing or another thing would be just feeling that you make a difference in the world. So if you're a hairdresser, not at the moment, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing somebody's hair, yes, you're getting an income from it, but the person, it feels really valued and feels, they're getting a nice experience. If you're making, in a meat processing plant and you're packing, chicken breasts, you're doing that to help society and people sustain
themselves. Contributing,
If you're in a plastic manufacturing company, I did a charity gig many years ago, collecting money all around the country on a tractor, strangely enough, and I had plastic buckets, and if I hadn't had the plastic bucket, I couldn't have raised all the money that we did for that charity. So the making a difference is key, and also just learning, developing new skills. So even if you have to take, and I don't advocate taking, unpaid work all the time, but if you want to get a foot in the door or you want to get experience, and somebody's saying, look, if you come and work for me for free for a couple of months, I'll probably be able to hire you. Do you know what I mean? At least I can't afford to hire you now, but at least you put yourself in the best position. And getting that experience is just going to stand to your CV. Do you know what I mean? It's going to enrich your CV. So of course, it's a much more holistic experience working than just getting money. It's about the relationships, it's about the skills, and it's about the making also the feeling of self-worth and self-esteem when you have that achievement of doing even the most minor job that you possibly think of getting a job doing.
And it's interesting how you mentioned about the volunteering, because we will be speaking to some people who are currently volunteering, or people, one person in particular who volunteered and that led to her getting a career out of it. So, it can be a really good thing to do. So, so if, say, you are one of the people who thinks that work is really important, you already think that, but you can't find a job, or you can't find the job that you really want right now, which is difficult, how can you find meaning on that journey? And you kind of touched on that earlier. Sometimes there's a bit of a journey before you get to the job you really want.
For sure. And the nice thing that we know, and when I say it's a nice thing, because it's not nice to have to experience difficult times. It's not nice to lose your job. It's not nice for any of us to get sick, or us to lose people. But what we know is that those experiences really help us going forward. So the losing your job or not being able to find work or find meaningful work at the moment is, I suppose, an opportunity for you to take a look at yourself and do some work on yourself. So, for example, what I spoke about earlier in terms of the what can I control, what I can't control. If your mindset, for example, is not up to shape, as in you find yourself just constantly, the glass is always half empty, then you can do a little bit of work on that. If you've looked at your environment, for example, and you've seen that somebody in your environment is very negative or is not supporting you in your journey, maybe you're not finding the job that you want, so you're being a little bit stubborn and saying, well, I'm not taking anything, I want to wait for the right thing. Then sometimes we have to monitor the time that we spend with those people and then move away from them and be more around our champions and less with the people who are bringing us down, radiators and drains. And the other things you can do is just things that help you to grow as a person. So we think of the practical things always, like the upskilling, the languages, any online courses that you can do. The community work and the voluntary work, you can't physically get out. Most of us can't physically get out to do that at the moment. But there's loads of stuff that we can do, virtually or even in our own sort of immediate environment. And in terms of getting a job as well, to be creative about that, because I was listening to a guy called Peter Cosgrove earlier, called a company called FutureWise, just discovered him today, and he was just a great speaker. He was on News Talk, a radio program earlier today, and he was talking about somebody who had come to him for advice how to get a job, and he said, just go to the company you want to work for and ask them for a job, because networking is what it's all about. And he said they came back and they said no. There was a big conference coming up. He wanted to go to the conference. He contacted the conference organizers. They said no. He said contact them again. They contacted them a second time, still no. And he said, look, tell you what, ring them up. Just tell them that you can't afford to go to the conference and you'll do anything. You'll take the coats. You won't take a lunch. you'll help in the registrations, whatever. So they said, okay. And by the end of the day, the person had made so many contacts that they got 7 interviews in the space of the next few weeks.
Yeah,
and you're going, that's a really, you have to think outside the box as well. So by all means, there are lots of things that you can be doing, whilst you're looking for a job. But don't forget, there are lots of creative ways of getting in front of it. And networking, is what it's all about. And for the people who are a little bit more mature listening today, the ones in their sort of 20s and 30s, there's a good chance that you might have either heard of or you are on a communication network called LinkedIn, a social media platform called LinkedIn. And it's a gold mine at the moment. And the virtual world is a gold mine in terms of just reaching out to people for virtual coffees to see if they'll have a chat. And if you're in your teens, if you're 16, 17 listening to this, or anything around that age bracket, and you just don't know about jobs, it's another way you can just look at people's profiles online, and you can reach out to have a chat.
So there's plenty you can be doing in the meantime, or during that journey, or if, as you said, if we mentioned earlier, if you're working in a job that maybe isn't exactly what you want to do, but it'll help you get there. So before we move on to some questions that have been submitted to us by some young people around Ireland, are there any resources you'd recommend to those watching the video? You've mentioned LinkedIn already. Is there anything you could add to that?
Absolutely, Brian. Thanks for asking that. So there's a couple of, people, the sort of younger age bracket might have heard of a thing called careersportal.ie, which has both a careers interest profiler on it, and it also has great job specs, career profiles on it. And I talk about career all the time. Other people talk in jobs, but we think about job as being sort of a one-stop, sort of a functional thing, whereas a career is like a path for life. You're on your career and you're on a journey. So they have career profiles. The other thing, for if you're in your sort of teens, 20s, you might be aware of a thing called gradireland.com, and like that, they have both loads of career information on it. They do have a career profiler, and also it's a great one in the UK called prospects.ac.uk, and also targetjobs.co.uk. So any of those are fantastic in terms of just both trying to find the career you want, a nice match, and any guidance counsellors or guidance advisors or people working as career coaching with anybody that's listening at the moment, that they'll definitely have some,
I might
that.
get you to send me those links, and we'll put them underneath the video, so if you just go down below the title,
absolutely. And just
see them.
A quick one as well, iCould.com is great. iCould, it's a British site, but it's loads of videos of people at all different stages in their career talking about their jobs, so it's lovely. You can just randomly search for lots of different type of careers. Great resource to have.
Brilliant.
And before I go on to the questions, I just wanted to say a thing that people think about success in life. You know what I mean, and success. And I read a lovely quote recently, because people think is success, about making money or whatever. And it isn't. Success just is about feeling fulfilled in your career, fulfilled in your life. And this guy called Zig Ziglar, lovely name, rolls off the tongue. He says, "Success isn't for the chosen few. It's for the few who choose it."
Okay.
Success is not for the chosen few. It's for the few who choose it. And if you choose to be successful, if whatever you want in life, there's nothing that you can't achieve. If you want it badly enough, if you get the right resources behind you and support behind you, and if you put the work in yourself,
Okay, that's good advice, and a nice. Again, we'll put that quote in below the video, I think.